Hello and welcome to PlayStation Access, I'm Rob, and I hope you like vision cones and staying very still behind waist-high walls, because today we're taking you through the top 10 best stealth games on PS4. Regular viewers will know this is a subject close to my heart because, well, you might as well get a chair for this one, to be honest, Dave. There's more to stealth than Hideo Kojima's particular take on it, though. You know, it's a genre that allows you to explore alternative histories and imagined futures, to become a superhero or a really obnoxious waterfowl. The best stealth games feel like giant toy boxes where it's okay to experiment before settling on an approach, unless there's a dribbling xenomorph after you, in which case you can just forget all of that. I'm running away. Seriously, even the sight of that thing and I've had to put an extra light on. Let's get on with it before it comes back. Metal Gear Solid 5 The Phantom Pain is first on our list. And yes, Dave, I wasn't joking earlier. Seriously, get a chair. How could we start anywhere else? A whole generation of gamers has grown up with Metal Gear Solid, taking our first nervous footsteps onto both Shadow Moses and into stealth gaming as a whole on PS1 in 1998. As it grew in complexity, we grew with it, evolving into ever more sophisticated infiltrators. And the culmination of all that, obviously, is a massive open-world game where you build a private army, train a dog, attach balloons to sheep, and surf down sand dunes in a cardboard box. If you'd have told 12-year-old me that Metal Gear Solid would one day go open world, well, first you'd have had to explain what open world even was. And once you did, 12-year-old me would probably be worried about what might happen to all the cool camera angles and movie-like storytelling. Well, just shut up and stop worrying, hypothetical 12-year-old me, and take a look at this, the Fulton device. This one tool in MGS5's enormous armoury perfectly captures the spirit of the game. At once a silly bit of slapstick comedy, a genuinely useful stealth tool for clearing away bodies or gathering equipment, and a conduit for brilliant lateral thinking solutions. Why take on an armoured tank with conventional weapons when you can just, sneak up to it and spirit it away? Thank you, Fulton device. Yes, MGS5 is absolutely massive, and fully comprehending its epic story is like trying to grab a cloud. But in every single desert rock, 80s cassette tape and mulleted guard, you can feel Kojima's presence, obsessing over the tiny details that together coalesce into a breathtaking, masterful whole. On to Dishonored 2 now, a beautiful sandbox that above all feels smarter than you, a game that preempts every move you might make and layers them into its world of choice and action. Welcome to the textured alternate Victorian city of Karnaca, a place which tells a story through every tin of whale meat and each line of architecture. Let's say you fully devote yourself to mastering Corvo's abilities, figuring out all the secret little passageways you can access using Blink, getting into the inner workings of the amazing Clockwork Mansion level, bending time to find the tiny gaps in guards' patrol patterns in the garden of the Royal Conservatory, possessing people right, left and centre. You might know Karnaca better than I know the guard patterns on MGS2's tanker level, but you've still only seen half the game. Because you can also play as Emily Coldwin, the rightful queen of the kingdom, with all her unique abilities. Her far-reach ability is just different enough to Blink that it makes you re-scan the levels for ledges to cling onto and people to pull towards you. Domino chains tagged enemies together so that whatever happens to one of them happens to them all. Imagine designing a world that holds up against two distinct set of supernatural powers. The level of care and detail that must take. Then imagine making it so you didn't have to use powers at all, because you don't. As a point of principle, the game gives you this choice. It exists to give you choices. And then imagine designing the world so it can be used with all the powers at once, because that's also something you can do in New Game Plus. Dishonored 2 is astonishingly good. Hitman 2 is our next entry, a game that stars a bald, neck-tattooed, 7-foot man with eyes that could stare down a great white shark who, somehow, has a real knack for blending in. It's also a totally different kind of stealth game to the others on this list, because while the genre typically asks you to stay hidden behind that wall or sneak around this improbably nearsighted man, Hitman wants you to get right into the mix. You're still being sneaky, but you're doing it in plain sight, wearing the clothes of a man you stuffed into a box around the corner after chucking an antique bust at his face. You're not just waiting for your target to appear, shooting him in the head with a pistol and then legging it, although that is a totally valid way to play Hitman. Shut up, it is! You're bluffing your way into their inner circle, often getting close enough to hold conversations with them before a moment arises when the two of you are alone. Or sometimes the exact opposite, rigging an elaborate trap that means you're absolutely nowhere near the recently exploded or poisoned or whatever it is target, instead pushing your way through a crowd on your way to the exit, feeling like the mayor of Smugtown. And then there are the levels themselves. Look at all the extraneous detail going on here at the Miami racetrack just to immerse you in Agent 47's world. I wouldn't mind, but they're all like this. Mastering even one area is a real feat in Hitman 2. And the fact it now includes all the levels from Hitman 1 as well is basically too much. Stop it, IO. You are spoiling us. Next up, Deus Ex Mankind Divided, the game that asks, what would it be like to be a nano-augmented human? At what point down the road of messing with our biology and filling it with circuit boards do we stop being human? How many guards can you pile into a ventilation shaft before the cabal of evil conspirators you've infiltrated starts to smell something funny? It's a good job Eidos Montreal were assigned to answer these questions instead of me, because they've created avant-garde sunglasses fetishist Adam Jensen, a nano man with a voice like a breeze blowing through a sandpaper factory. He can punch through walls, hack into mainframes, see through solid objects and read people like a book, all in the name of exposing the Illuminati and their scheme to exploit the population's robot racism for their own ends. I mean, I'd have been happy just jacking up my reaction times so I could beat the developer ghosts on Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled, and giving myself the ability to hack vending machines. But saving the world is good too, I guess, especially when it comes with Mankind Divided's ultra-detailed future hub worlds and their Blade Runner meets the Palace of Versailles architectural opulence. Because that's what really gets under your skin, the world itself, and how coherent it all feels, from Jensen's moody neoclassical apartment to the rain-drenched streets of Prague. Why can't life look this moody? When Volume's creator Mike Bithell was a kid, he used to recreate Metal Gear VR missions in Lego on his bedroom floor. And I think that really says a lot about Volume, an indie stealth game that smashes Robin Hood into Tron and then soaks it with voice talent from Andy Serkis and Danny Wallace. Essentially, this is a familiar MGS-type stealth experience boiled right down to its most essential Lego-like parts. The starkness of the levels isn't just stylistic, it definitely serves to remind you about the brutality of both the regime and Renegade simulation program at the heart of its story. But it's also perfectly functional, you know exactly where all the cover is, where the guards are, what they can see, and where the interactive objects are, just like those VR missions in the original Metal Gear Solid. Without the usual set dressing to distract you from the fact this is all a game, you're free to treat it, well, like a game. You get into the mindset of looking for exploits and hacks, memorizing guard routines that you know they'll stick to for all of infinity because they are coded to. It's liberating, and this being a Mike Bithell game, it's also great to listen to, offering up the story of a petty thief called Robert Loxley, a heist simulating program with a rogue AI and a dastardly despot called Guy of Gisborne, who, well, you can see where it's all heading, can't you?
Fire! You will be contained.
Now, you might have played Thief in 2014, a game set in a steampunky version of Victorian London where an oppressive tyrant has seized power and only a really sneaky masked man can overthrow him, and thought it was borrowing a bit from 2012's Dishonored, a game set in a steampunky version of Victorian London where you can see where I'm going with this. But actually, Thief's lineage goes right back to the birth of the stealth genre, where the original 1998 game was the first to turn newfangled ideas like light and darkness and sound into actual mechanics. Garrett, the master thief, was more or less visible depending on how well lit the area was, and his footsteps were easier to hear if he walked from some carpet onto stone slabs. 2014's Thief is all about that same philosophy, really paying attention to your environment and manipulating it, firing arrows to extinguish lights and create climbing ropes, minding your footsteps on hard surfaces, hitting people really hard in the head with a big blackjack. Dishonored shares the same lineage as Thief, it's an offshoot of the same family, but scratch away at the surface similarities and you'll find a unique fantasy heart beating away underneath, with missions that are more about making off with some greedy lord's shinies than necessarily killing him. There's a specific thrill to that, going in and out unseen and achieving your objective without having to even interact with anyone. Sounds like a good day at the Access office to me.
Glad you could make it.
Next up, it's the best name in stealth gaming, and time to pay Ezio Auditore di Firenze his dues. Not only for fronting a trilogy of unforgettable historical adventures, but for consistently taking 100-foot drops into hay carts and never taking so much as a day to deal with what must be by now devastating chronic spine damage. Assassin's Creed The Ezio Collection brings together Assassin's Creed 2, Brotherhood and Revelations with enhanced visuals for PS4. That's about as good of a 3-game streak as the genre has ever seen, charting Ezio's rise from 15th century nobody roaming Renaissance Italy to fully fledged assassin and leader of the Brotherhood in Rome. And just in case that wasn't enough breathtaking views of spires for you, a trip to Constantinople too. And once again, Ezio's own personal brand of stealth is distinct from the others on this list. God, this is a great genre, isn't it? Preferring to blend into crowds, stalk people from rooftops, and dispatching conveniently placed guards with his patented hidden blade. It isn't just that the parkour's possible here, it's that it feels so right. You know, it's almost philosophical. It's about us as physical beings and our relationship with the world around us. The meaning of space only manifested through the art of acrobatic interaction. Thank you for opening my eyes, Assassin's Creed Ezio Collection. Conventional logic would have it that if you wanted to stay on the down low, you wouldn't dress yourself up as a 6-foot bat, arrive in a black market tank that's also designed to look like a bat, and regularly jump off skyscrapers in a bat suit. But Batman Arkham Knight isn't about conventional logic. It's about being flippin' Batman. He might not beat some of our other protagonists for going about absolutely undetected. That's right, Dave, I'm thinking about camouflage. But a suited up and kitted out Bruce Wayne is pretty hard to spot before it's too late. Arkham Knight might be the only game on this list which is just as good at straight up fighting as it is at stealth. Rocksteady has mastered 2 systems simultaneously: the Arkham series gang battering melee combat, which has become an action genre game changer, and the pure stealth predator mode where Batman strikes relentlessly from the shadows. Of course, the Arkham games are so good that the two frequently flow together, but it is possible to stay hidden and invisible using Batman's stacked D-pad of tech toys to grapple, blind, freeze, and shock your adversaries into dreamless sleep. Yes, they're not dead, they're sleeping. Even this guy. Arkham Knight never feels judgmental about slipping out of stealth. It's more like, hey, would you like to batter everyone in sight using a barrage of the most gratifying punches you can exact out of a DualShock? Or how about we summon your self-driving war crime of a car to run them down like human ants? But there's a Batman-esque thrill to the discipline of never revealing yourself to the enemy, of never slipping from cover, of making the gloom your home, of becoming the not. Well played, Rocksteady. Alien Isolation is next on our list, and no, stop. You stop right there. Get back in that ceiling. It's a bit early for that, isn't it? Just let me get through the beginning bit first. Okay, thank you. Alien Isolation is an unbelievably scary horror game in which the alien from the original 1979 Ridley Scott film comes out of a ceiling and chases you around bloody relentlessly. But Creative Assembly's Alien Isolation is also very much of the stealth camp, and there it is. Not that the abandoned Sevastopol space station ever feels much like a playground for light-hearted experimentation. At best, you get 5 minutes of peace to look over a room brimming with authentic analog sci-fi bric-a-brac and nod to yourself at how perfectly faithful to the film it all looks, before your motion tracker goes off and you're back to shivering in a cupboard until the bad thing goes away. This is sneakiness by absolute necessity. There is no way to face the alien head-on. It's certain death because, well, it would be, wouldn't it? So you're forced into all the tiny gaps of the Sevastopol where it can't reach. The blinding fear of the first few encounters does ease off as you get familiar with the alien and how it operates, and as you hit later areas, it's not just the xenomorph you have to worry about, which means indulging in a more traditional kind of subterfuge: EMP grenades, flashbangs, smoke bombs, running away, that sort of thing. But there's no getting away from the acid-strength blend of terror and cinematic atmosphere that earn Alien Isolation a spot on this list. Any game that tells you press square to honk during its tutorial is on to a winner, and as it turns out, our next entry, Untitled Goose Game, is more than a bit of light relief. By bringing the stakes right down to angry but basically still polite farmers and closed gates, developers House use the conventions of stealth gaming as a foundation for you to inhabit familiar spaces through a different perspective. Now, we all know seagulls are the most belligerent members of the avian family, let's not even have that conversation. But geese are probably up there on the podium, aren't they? They've got a definite swagger that Untitled Goose Game captures brilliantly, and an innate refusal to accept our authority, which makes more and more sense as you spend more time with it. I mean, why shouldn't I walk through this arbitrary delineation of land and into someone's garden? I'm a goose. I do what I want. Why shouldn't I just keep opening this caterer's car boot again and again and again? See these webbed feet, mate? Yeah, take it up with the RSPB. Aside from being so lovely to look at, it's like taking your eyes on a wellness retreat, Untitled Goose Game has you undermining human beings' plans with such deliciously jerk moves that you can't help but envy its life a bit. So, there you have it, the top 10 best stealth games on PS4, from cyber-enhanced super assassins to geese. Let us know your picks in the comments, give us a like if you enjoyed the video, and click that notification bell to make sure you're always up to date with everything from the world of PlayStation.